speaking of the Rams, they won again, 41-34 over the Lions. They were down 10, but they outscored the Lions 24-10 in the second half. Matthew Stafford, another great game. Did throw a pick. Actually, threw a pick to Aiden Hutchinson. He read the play. It was like going to be like a tight end screen, but Aiden Hutchinson ran that, picked it off. Got contributions from both running backs again. 2 touchdowns for Kyron Williams, touchdown from Blake Corum. Puka Nacua, big game. Colby Parkinson, 2 touchdowns. One of them, I don't know how it was a touchdown because, and after the whole week of talking about Isaiah Likely and how that should have been a touchdown, Colby Parkinson catches the ball. His knee is down before he even crosses the plane. Pretty sure he was touched, and they ruled it a touchdown. I didn't understand that, but that ended up being a touchdown. He had another one later in the game, which was big. Devontae Adams actually got hurt, hamstring. Same injury. It's been bothering him for some time, and he was on a deep route, and he ended up pulling up and falling down. And I thought that was it, but he hasn't been officially ruled out yet. But it's week to week, so I don't think he's playing tomorrow. So it's going to be... And Puka Nacua ended up leaving this game at one point, too, but he came back in, thankfully. But, yeah, so it looks like there's going to be no Devontae Adams, so other guys are going to have to step up. But, yeah, I mean, this was a back-and-forth game, fun game. Jared Goff had a good game, 3 more touchdowns for him. Rams did a good job at limiting Jahmyr Gibbs, but they couldn't stop Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. St. Brown, 13 catches for 164 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jameson Williams at 7 for 134 and a touchdown. I mean, this Lions defense just couldn't get any stops. The Rams were moving the ball up and down the field after they were down. And then the Lions offense kind of stalled a little bit. Again, they lose 41-34. They're on the outside looking in, so they basically have to win out and get a little bit of help. So, but they're not done yet. But yeah, this defense just, I mean, it's similar to last year. You're dealing with injuries and it's kind of a little bit too much to overcome. The offense has to basically be perfect. And, it almost was, but like I said, they kind of stalled a little bit. And the Rams kind of took control of the game, and that was it. So the Lions might miss the playoffs. So, and, yeah, no, I mean, they still got a chance, obviously, but, it's they're kind of in a tough spot right now. So, yeah, so they dropped to 8-6. They'll be taking on the Steelers next week. And speaking of the Pittsburgh Steelers, everybody's making noise about them because they won 28-15 over the Dolphins. And Aaron Rodgers played well. The defense played well without T.J. Watt. Got a couple of, one turnover, 1 interception off of Tua. Asante Samuel Jr., who the Steelers picked up and activated him. He got an interception. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, he scored a touchdown. That was like the Green Bay days all over again. Rodgers made some good throws in this game. In the beginning of the game, it was tough. The Steelers were struggling a bit. Rodgers was getting sacked. Dolphins defense was flying around. The defensive backs were getting to the guys, getting to the Steelers players immediately and tackling them down, not giving up any big gains, nothing. But then the Steelers started to get hot, and they started to move the ball. They started to run. They were running the football effectively. Kenneth Gainwell and Jaylen Warren. I mean, it looked like Jaylen Warren was going to explode for like a big run, but got tripped up a couple times. But yeah, both of them looked good. Rodgers, there were some good throws in this game. He still has some zip on that ball when he throws it. To Valdes-Scantling for the touchdown, like I said. He hit earlier in the game, he hit DK Metcalf in the middle of the field. That was a good throw. That was a vintage Rodgers throw. And then, later in the game, to Metcalf again for the touchdown. I thought that was going to get picked off. It looked like it was going to get picked off. It looked like the defensive back, he did try to jump the route, but Rodgers fitted in there. DK made the catch, stiff-armed the man, and he got into the end zone for a touchdown. And the Steelers win. And now everybody's talking about the Steelers, and hey, they can make a deep run. Look at them. If they could play like that. Look, as somebody that wants to see Aaron Rodgers go out on top, want to pump the brakes a little bit, because right now if the Steelers are in a good spot, especially after winning that game against the Ravens, and now you won here. I want to pump the brakes because the Steelers, if they do make the playoffs, they're going to have to either play the Bills again, the Chargers, or the Texans. Okay? Chargers and Texans both have very good defenses. All right. And then you just played Josh Allen. Now, the Bills struggled in the first half, but then Josh Allen got it rolling, and the Bills ran the ball for over 200 yards, I think, again against the Steelers. So those are three tough opponents. Now, the Steelers will be at home, whereas in years past they've had to go on the road. So that gives them a chance. And Aaron Rodgers, if he's going to play like that, they got a chance. If the defense plays like how it did, because they shut down the running game. I thought Devon Achane was going to have a big game in the early going, but then the Steelers kind of, settled in. Once they started falling behind, then, the Dolphins basically had to throw it. Troy Aikman was not happy with how the Dolphins were handling, the final quarter, because they started putting up points, but they weren't running hurry up. They were kind of taking their time, and, you wonder if maybe if they would have showed some more urgency, and because they started to move the ball a little bit, maybe they had a chance. But I mean, you're down 28-3. Not many teams come back from that. Sorry, Falcons. But yeah, the Steelers were in full control of this game once they took the lead. Because the Dolphins did have a 3-0 lead, but the Steelers, once they scored that first touchdown, it was a Connor Hayward rushing touchdown. Also, Jonnu Smith had a rushing touchdown in this game too. He wanted to score against his former team. The Steelers, look, after what we saw against Buffalo a couple weeks ago, and the fans are booing Renegade and chanting Fire Tomlin, and Rodgers with the bloody nose getting sacked by Joey Bosa, losing the ball, and the Bills scoring a touchdown off of that, I thought the Steelers were done. But what did Mike Tomlin say after the game against the Bills? He said, keep watching. And we keep on watching. And now they've won against the Ravens, and now they've won against the Dolphins. So, and the offenses looked good. And, we've seen Rodgers with the discount double check, and, he's throwing the deep ball, and, some of his throws have looked like vintage Rodgers, like I said. And, they played some good complementary football. And if that can continue, they could be a dangerous team. So, but I'm not going to get too caught up in it, because I still think that whoever they play against in the first round of the playoffs, if they do get there, it's going to be a very tough game, and they're going to be the underdogs. But hey, you know what? Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin are very experienced in January. I know they've, have lost more than they've won now. I mean, they both have won Super Bowls. And this team is a veteran team. They could still get it done. They could. I don't know. I'm not going to say they will. But, you got these veterans now. You bring in MVS, you bring in Thielen, and, Thielen was getting praised for, some of his blocking on social media. These veteran guys, they've been around the game. They know what to do. And Rodgers and MVS have that chemistry. So, and Darnell Washington is a monster. I mean, that guy is hard to bring down. I'd still like to see them get Freiermuth more involved. I want to see him get more involved, because he could be a real weapon for them. So, I like what I saw. It was nice to see that. I'm going to appreciate it as much as long as it keeps going. Because I don't know, because it can end. It's coming to an end. And everybody was coming up to Rodgers. Joe Barry, who used to be on the Packers, went up to him and, called him the greatest of all time after the game. And I forgot about Zach Wilson being on the Dolphins, but, Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers had an exchange when he was being interviewed by Lisa Salters. Rasul Douglas came over to him. So, and Rodgers was in a good mood, and that's what happens. When you lose games, you're not in a good mood. When you win games, you are in a good mood. And, Rodgers talked about, some of the guys that kind of, he called them, castaways, and, they were let go by teams, and, teams gave up on them. But, the Steelers brought in some guys, brought those guys in, and they've played well, like Kenneth Gainwell. you know. Asante Samuel, MVS, So, yeah, look, it's a different Steelers team than what we've seen the last couple years because Rodgers is the best quarterback they've had since Big Ben. And the bar is not really that high because of what they've had. But look, you give Rodgers time to throw. The protection got better as the game went along. He could still sling that rock. And if you give him a running game and the defense played well on Monday, but I think it was more of just, Tua not playing well and not being able to play in the cold. Dolphins still can't win in the cold. Yeah, they could be a problem. But I look at some of these other teams and I just don't think the Steelers stack up well against these teams. So, but hey, they could surprise us. Like I said, after the Bills loss, you thought it was over. I thought it was over. But then they turn around and they beat the Ravens. So it's not over yet. They got the Lions this week, and that's a vulnerable defense. I think Rodgers and that offense could take advantage of it. It's just you're going to have to put up points with that offense. And Jamison Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, yeah, and Jahmyr Gibbs. That's going to be a problem. So we'll see what happens there. But since we're on the topic of the Dolphins, okay, Tua, benched last 3 games. Quinn Ewers is going to take over, and he's going to be the emergency quarterback. He's QB3. That's it for Tua. He's done with the Dolphins. And I think that's the right move. It's unfortunate for him, but he has not played up to expectations. He has not played up to that contract, especially. That was a big mistake giving him that contract. And they're going to do what the Broncos did to Russell Wilson. Cut ties with him, move on, and they're going to have to figure out that quarterback position. So it's just it's time. It's time. So I mean, hopefully Tua could get. I mean, again, it's nothing set in stone, but hopefully Tua can get off his feet and maybe he finds another spot and could try to revitalize his career. But yeah, I mean, even then, I'm not really that optimistic about it. I still he can win you games, but he's just not a starting quarterback. He's not. He could be a backup. That's how I look at him. So yeah, there's that, and we'll do a quick little whip around with all of the rest of the games. So yeah, the Giants 29-21 losing to the Commanders. Actually, didn't even talk about the Broncos and the Packers. We'll talk about that. That was a great game. Broncos won 34-26. Michael Parsons, though, goes down late in the game, torn ACL, so he's out. That is a huge blow to the Packers. Injury bug just keeps killing them. They already lost Tucker Kraft. Now you lose Michael Parsons on defense, who's been great. And now they're basically the same team they were last year, and that just really hurts their chances of making a deep playoff run, in my opinion. Jordan Love had a couple of turnovers. But I think I said this earlier in the pod. This was the best game I've seen Bo Nix play all year. I mean, he looked locked in. Was making the throws. I think he had 4 touchdown passes in this game. If you get that Bo Nix in January with that defense, they're going to be tough to beat. They're going to be really tough to beat in the AFC. Because the Broncos' offense has been so frustrating to watch all year. Well, it wasn't frustrating here. The Broncos were really good offensively here. And it was against a tough defense, too. This wasn't against soft competition. So that's encouraging going forward for the Broncos. But yeah, back to the Packers, though. That Micah Parsons injury is a killer. And look, they're still a good team even without Micah Parsons. But, when they got Micah Parsons, then they were looked at as Super Bowl contenders. Well, I don't think they're that anymore with him being out. But yeah, Broncos pick up the win, 12-2. Looks, I think they're going to end up getting the 1 seed. I know the Patriots are 1 game back, but I think Broncos are going to end up with that. Caleb Williams and the Bears, 31-3 over the Browns. Made some incredible throws. That 1 touchdown pass to DJ Moore was a highlight. That could be like a top 20 play when they come out with the top 100 plays in the NFL this year. The Ravens blanked the Bengals 24-0. Yeah, that was a tough scene for the Bengals. 4-10 now on the year. Texans all over the Cardinals, 40-20. We talked a little bit about the Jaguars, 48-20 over the Jets. Eagles get back on track. They win 31-0 over the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders just... Ugh. And they play the Giants in a couple weeks. We'll see how that game goes down. Panthers could have took over the NFC South. They end up losing 20-17 to the Saints. Saints have now swept the season series. I mean, give the Saints credit, though. They're fighting. And, Tyler Shuck has not looked that bad. Panthers dropped to 7-7. And they play the Bucs this week, so that's a big game. Niners win 37-24 over the Titans. They're now 10-4. They're going to make the postseason. Interested to see how that team looks in the postseason now, because they're not as loaded as they have been in years past. J.J. McCarthy, 3 more touchdowns. He had a rushing touchdown, had a couple touchdowns, made a nice throw. He made some good throws in this game, and he could air it out a little bit. He aired it out to Addison at one point during the game. Hit Jalen Naylor for a couple touchdowns. Made some good throws. I mean, Dallas' defense is not that good, but listen, look at how J.J. McCarthy was, when he first came back from injury. Last 2 weeks, he's played better. So, I mean, that's encouraging. Still not on the same page as Justin Jefferson, but that'll come around. You would hope it would, if he's going to be the guy going forward. But yeah, Dallas' playoff hopes are basically done after that loss. But yeah, that's Week 15 in the NFL. 3 more weeks left. It's going to be fun. For the most part, nothing set in stone yet. With divisions and the wild card race is going to be exciting. We'll make sure to cover it as we go along here. But thank you guys for watching. As always, everyone, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video, to the channel. Make sure to follow us on the social media platforms in the description below. And wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to us as well. Just look up Infinite Sports. You'll find us there. And until next time, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.